is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered.
There it was, a moment from yesterday, the White House telling our Mark Meredith that Hunter Biden will not get a pardon from his dad. Even though it is constitutional, the future of Hunter's legal battle remains uncertain after his plea deal fell apart a couple of days ago in court. Andy McCarthy, former Assistant U.S. Attorney, Fox News contributor, Brett Tolman, former federal prosecutor. Gentlemen, great to have you both on today. We want to get to the Trump matter in a moment, but let's put a button on the whole Hunter Biden pardon thing. Andy, here's how the New York Post says, I won't pardon my son. White House forced to vow that Joe will not save Hunter. I guess it's kind of a vow in pencil, isn't it, Andy? Because you can change your mind.
That's a good way of putting it, Bill. Yeah, right. It's not enforceable to begin with. But, I'm going to say the same thing about this as I did about, the questions about whether Trump would be pardoned if he were to win or if a Republican were to win. If you're running the Justice Department, you don't need to worry about pardoning anyone. And the fact of the matter is, as long as they dawdle here, these tax counts that Hunter is looking at are about 7-year counts at the max. All the other federal counts are 5-year counts. If they're running the Justice Department until January of 2025, there's not going to be anything left to pardon.
That's an interesting point, Brett.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. I think his analysis is spot on. I think the Justice Department has put themselves in a box, and the box is, what do we do with this case that we thought we were going to get past a judge, and will we have to address that question? I don't think they ever thought they were going to have to worry about the pardon because of the sweetheart deal.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Donald Trump now. Andy, you're up first. Here's the campaign statement that was given to Fox Digital. There's nothing more than a continued desperate and flailing attempt by the Biden crime family and their Department of Justice to harass President Trump and those around him. He had a lot more to say to Brooke Singman last night as well. So they've added on some charges. One suggests that he told one of his employees to delete the server, which would have taken care of all of the, surveillance video around Mar-a-Lago. It did not happen, however, and that's stated in the charge from yesterday. Does this change much yet?
I think it changes two things, Bill. One is they're obviously worried that a lot of the evidence against President Trump as it's laid out in the indictment comes from his lawyer. And if the judge in Florida, unlike the judge in the District of Columbia, were inclined to find that actually the attorney-client privilege is not breached by the crime fraud exception and that those communications are privileged, then the Justice Department needs to tighten up their obstruction proof or they won't have a case. So I think this is what they're trying to address. But my long-term prescription about this is that the classified information issues in this case are so complicated, I don't see how it gets to trial in May because they have to flush all that out before the trial starts. And now if you start superseding the indictment and adding new defendants who have to get cleared counsel in order to review the discovery, I don't know how on earth they're going to get this case to trial.
Yeah, Brett, the Trump campaign statement following this latest indictment, this is nothing more than a continued desperate and flailing attempt by the Biden crime family and the Department of Justice to harass President Trump and those around him. To you on that, does this change anything? And what does happen next?
Well, it does change things. A couple of points here. It is incredibly important to remember that oftentimes what you do after an investigation has started that gets you in more trouble than the underlying case. And so if there is evidence that they're going to be able to paint, folks as trying to cover up or to delete or get rid of evidence, it's going to be an issue. And it may be an issue even though the underlying is poor.
I had a hard time with your signal there, Brett, but we will do better next time, okay? Brett Tolman and Andy McCarthy. Andy, I want to give you credit for what might have been the line of the week after that crazy court appearance with Hunter Biden a few days ago. You wrote, the fix was in for Hunter until a hero judge stepped up. Alas, there's nothing standard about the Hunter Biden case. That's because the parties are not adversaries, they are in cahoots. Last comment on that, because I know you believe it. I think a lot of Americans looking on the outside in might agree with you.
Well, I'm only a lion, so if I have to appear with Bengals and Tigers, I have to step up my game. What can I say?
Fair enough. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Andy. Thank
Well
you.
done, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.